My ex-mill sent churchwomen to humiliate my daughter on her birthday, so I exposed her lies to the whole church with one binder. I never imagined a birthday celebration could twist into such chaos. Not for my youngest daughter, not after everything we've already endured, but this is the story of how my ex-mother-in-law decided to cross a line so vile, so manipulative, so utterly disgusting that I had no choice but to retaliate. And when I say retaliate, I mean burn every bridge-style exposure that left her reeling from the very people she used to weaponize against me. My name's Andrea. I'm 46 and a single mother of 2 daughters. My ex-husband died in a car accident last year. It was sudden, brutal, and in a twisted way, it offered me a strange sort of closure. Not peace, just the end of a nightmare. You see, our marriage was already a sinking ship long before his death. He was cheating, and not just some late midlife crisis one-night stand cheating. No, he had a full-blown affair, one that produced 2 children, 2 little boys who were now left orphaned, after the woman he cheated with also died in the same accident. What followed was a level of drama that even I couldn't have predicted. His parents, my former in-laws, decided they were entitled to more than just grief. They wanted my daughter's full custody, and then they wanted to move in with us to live with us, as if my daughters should suddenly become caretakers for the elderly hypocrites who once called them bastards for exposing the truth about their father. We're already battling the custody madness in court, but the moving in part, that will never happen. Not on this planet, not in this lifetime. Now where we live, there's this quaint weekend market, fresh produce, handmade pastries, meats, eggs. It's a beautiful escape from the mess life can be. And that weekend, it was my youngest daughter's birthday. We weren't throwing the party yet, that's later in the month, but I gave her a budget, told her to treat herself, and let her roam the stalls like she owned them. She was thrilled, bouncing between vendors, giggling over chocolate and sweets. It was the first real smile I'd seen on her face in weeks, and I clung to it. An hour passed and I started feeling uneasy. Maybe it was mother's intuition, maybe just nerves, and then my phone rang. It was her. Her voice was trembling. She was crying, panicking. I could barely make sense of her words, but I understood one thing. She was scared. She said a group of strange old women had cornered her and were yelling at her. I grabbed my oldest daughter and sprinted through the crowd. And when we got there, my blood ran ice cold. 6 women late 60s at least, wearing pastel sweaters and pearls like they just stepped out of a bad church choir pamphlet, were surrounding my daughter, berating her, calling her unchristian heartless, saying she should be ashamed for refusing to honor her grandparents, and for not stepping up to care for her poor orphaned baby brothers, the same baby brothers born from her father's betrayal, the same betrayal that shattered our family. These women weren't just random zealots. No, they were friends of my ex-mother-in-law, church friends, sent to do her dirty work, to guilt trip and harass my 15-year-old daughter on her birthday, and she was shaken, holding a bag of sweets like it was the only thing grounding her to this planet. I snapped. I told my eldest to go pay for her sister's items and wait in the car. Then I turned to face the entire coven. And let me tell you, I was not calm, I was not polite, I was nuclear. I told them in no uncertain terms that if they ever laid a single word of guilt or shame on my daughters, again, I would personally show up to their homes with a megaphone and read aloud every sin they've confessed at that church. They tried to quote scripture. I quoted court dates and restraining orders. They said I was refusing to obey my in-laws like a good Christian wife. I told them to go find a Bible verse where it says, "Thou shalt let toxic in-laws move in after they slander your children." The shouting got so loud, market staff came over and kicked us all out. It was a scene my girls and I got in the car, and I could still see the women trailing us like vultures as we drove off. But that wasn't the end. Later that night, after my girls went to bed, I got online and messaged an old friend from that church, someone I still trusted. What he told me was the final straw. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was my daughter's face. Tears streaked down her cheeks while strangers told her she was a disappointment to God. Because she wouldn't let my ex-in-laws bulldoze their way into her life, I sat in the dark staring at my laptop, the screen burning into my retinas, and I typed, and I searched, and I built. You see, I wasn't always just a mom or just a wife. I was an administrative assistant for a law firm before I had kids, which meant I knew how to compile, how to archive, how to present evidence in a way that would shred someone's character in a courtroom without saying a single word. So I started building what I now refer to as the Binder of Doom, 48 pages of chronological emails, texts, voicemails, screenshots, even handwritten notes from my daughters that they wrote in therapy. All of it. Every manipulative message from my ex-mother-in-law, every false claim she made about me being an unfit mother, every nasty jab she threw about my daughters being tainted because their father cheated, and every screenshot of her cozying up to his mistress while pretending she didn't know about the affair. Oh, she knew. She knew the whole time she enabled it, welcomed her into the family like some church charity case called her my bonus daughter on Facebook while I was still married to her son. And my daughters, she barely acknowledged them unless it was to shame them for looking too much like me. That church she went to, they thought she was some sweet, grieving old woman trying to stay connected to her grandkids. Nah, she was a snake, a manipulative viper dressed in a cardigan. I sent my trusted friend at the church a message asking one simple question: would the congregation be interested in the full truth? His reply? Drop the hammer. Andrea. So I did. The church was planning a weekend community gathering, kind of like a potluck/charity auction, all families welcome, and I showed up, not in yoga pants, not in mom jeans, but in a fitted blazer and heels. I walked in like I owned the place, binder clutched to my chest and a look on my face that said, "We are not playing games anymore." My ex-mother-in-law didn't see me at first. She was too busy fluttering around the bake sale table, bragging about her lemon bars, but when she finally spotted me, her smile froze. Her eyes narrowed, and for a split second, I could see the panic ripple under her skin. I walked straight to the pastor and handed him the binder. Didn't say a word, just handed it to him. He asked what it was. I said, proof of everything she's been hiding, proof of how she's used your congregation like her personal army, and how she's weaponized faith to abuse my daughters. Then I turned and left, didn't stay for the fallout, didn't need to, because the explosion that followed was delicious. By the time I got home, I had 4 missed calls and a string of furious texts from her. She called me a liar, a devil, a destroyer of peace. Said I had no right to air private family matters in front of God-fearing people. But she forgot something. She started this war. She sent people to ambush my daughter. She turned a sacred space into a battlefield, so I burned her reputation to the ground, using her own words, her own posts, her own lies. By Monday morning, I heard through the grapevine that several church members had demanded she step down from her volunteer leadership roles. Parents were concerned about her influence around their kids. And the pastor? He announced a new rule. No personal family disputes would be handled through church channels ever again. All grievances had to be taken privately, with legal mediation if needed. Translation? She lost her power. She lost her stage. She lost the halo she wore so proudly while stabbing people behind the scenes. But me? I tucked my daughters in that night, kissed their foreheads and smiled, because for the first time in a long time, justice didn't just knock. It walked in, sat down, and served her cold. You'd think after being exposed, after having her carefully spun lies torn to shreds, in front of the people she worshipped alongside every Sunday, she'd crawl back into whatever hole she slithered out of. But nah, this woman has the audacity of a villain in a soap opera and the delusion of a cult leader. 2 days after the binder of doom dropped, she reappeared on Facebook like nothing happened, posting a picture of a candlelit Bible next to a mug of tea with a caption that said, "He who is without sin, cast the first stone. I forgive those who have wronged me, even if they are my own blood." Blood? Ma'am, the only thing you've spilled is lies and tears you faked for attention. She called me blood when 3 days ago she sicked 6 church harpies on my teenage daughter forgiveness. This isn't about forgiveness. This is about consequences, and she was choking on hers. But the real kicker, she started spinning a new version of the story, one where she and her husband were manipulated by my ex, that they were lied to about the affair, that they had no idea the boys were from cheating. Now suddenly they were victims too, just a couple of sweet old folks tricked by their golden boy son and now abandoned by everyone. It made me sick, because she wasn't just trying to save face, she was trying to rewrite history. So I dropped the second bomb. See, I didn't use everything in the binder of doom. I had saved the worst, the one piece of evidence that I couldn't even bring myself to print. A voice recording, taken from a conversation between her and my ex 3 months before he died. It was a butt dial. He had called me accidentally during a conversation with his mom and left a 6-minute voicemail. In that voicemail, she laughed. actually laughed as he told her about spending the weekend with his mistress and the twins. She said, "Well, she's always been a little too stiff anyway. Maybe that girl will loosen you up." He laughed too, said the mistress made him feel young again. Then she said, "Just make sure Andrea never finds out until the will's finalized. You can't let those girls get a dime of what we worked for." The girls she meant were my daughters, and that message made it crystal clear. She never saw them as family. She never saw me as human. We were pawns, obstacles, burdens. So I took that voicemail and I sent it, not to the pastor, not to Facebook, but to every single person on the church's women's auxiliary email list, with a simple message: in case anyone needs clarity about who the real victims are, please listen, especially to the part where she calls her granddaughters bastards and says they don't deserve a future. That was it. Didn't even sign it. I went radio silent, didn't respond to the dozen messages that followed, didn't answer the phone, didn't log back in because I didn't need to. The next Sunday, she didn't show up to church, neither did her husband, and on Monday, her social media was gone, wiped, deleted, vanished. Word got back to me that she had a breakdown, that she accused the church of betraying her, that she demanded the pastor issue a formal apology and reinstate her. And when he said no, she apparently screamed, "I built this community. I kept the faith when no one else did. How dare you shame me for what my son did?" Nah, she wasn't shamed for what her son did. She was shamed for who she really was. After the church explosion, after she vanished from every space she once controlled, like a queen on a throne of judgment, you'd think we'd feel safe. You'd think that peace would roll in like a wave. But peace isn't loud, it's quiet. And in the quiet, the trauma echoes louder. My youngest wouldn't go near the market. My oldest started double locking her bedroom door. They were shaken to the bone, because when the people who raised your father turn on you, when they call you names you can't repeat, when they weaponize God against you, that's not something therapy alone can erase. So I sat them down one Sunday morning while the sun filtered in soft and golden, like it was trying to make up for everything the world had taken. I made pancakes, put on their favorite playlist, and told them the full story, not just what their grandmother did, not just the binders or the voicemail or the church clapback, but everything, the cheating, the lies, how their father had planned to cut them out, how I had stayed silent for too long because I wanted to protect them from knowing how truly cruel some people can be when they no longer see you as useful. My youngest cried. My oldest clenched her jaw so tight her teeth clicked. Then my oldest said, "He always said we were his girls, but we were just his trophies, huh?" I didn't know what to say, so I said the only thing I knew was true. "Your father failed you, but I never will." They didn't say much after that. They didn't need to. Some truths don't get spoken. They just live in the space between hugs and tears, and the way your daughter leans into you a little longer than before. But just when I thought it was over, just when I thought the fire had burned itself out, the knock came. It was late, almost 10 p.m. I opened the door to find a man in his 30s holding a duffel bag. Dark hair, eyes like my ex. He looked like a ghost, like a memory I'd never made, and he said, "Are you Andrea?" I nodded slowly. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for a decade. "I'm David, one of the twins from the affair." The air left the room. I blinked, froze. I couldn't speak. He saw my face and held up his hands. "I'm not here to cause anything. I needed to know. I needed to meet the woman my father left us for, the one he lied about, the one who gave him daughters he never deserved. I swear to you, the world stopped turning for a full 10 seconds because that boy, man, stood on my porch with his face all bruised by life and betrayal. And he didn't come with anger. He came with grief. He told me he found the binders, that one of the distant relatives he lived with went to the same church. He said, "They told me everything. They said, you didn't owe me anything. But I needed to look you in the eye and say thank you, because if you hadn't exposed him, I'd still be thinking he was some great man who died too young, and I would have spent my whole life hating you for taking him from me." I was crying. Couldn't help it. It just broke out of me, because I didn't ask for any of this, but somehow it was always mine to carry. I invited him in. My daughters came out. And for a second, just a second, there was something almost like family in the room. They didn't hug. They didn't smile, but they sat, they listened. And when he left, my youngest said, "He looked like Dad, but he sounded like us." Weeks passed after that night, the night David showed up. The night my daughter saw their half-brother not as a threat, not as a scar, but as someone who also bled from the same wound. We didn't become a blended family, don't get it twisted. There were no hugs and family dinners and TikTok reunions, but we did become honest. That boy, David, kept in touch. Every now and then he'd text on birthdays, send dumb memes, sometimes just a hope you're okay. It was strange, but it helped, because sometimes healing ain't fixing everything. It's just not flinching anymore. My daughters, they're healing too. Slowly, one still can't look at pictures of their dad. The other started painting again. She made this one piece of a woman standing in fire holding 2 kids and called it Still Standing. Yeah, that one made me cry in the shower for like an hour. As for the ex-in-laws, word got around they tried joining another church. Didn't last long. One of the deacons recognized them from the infamous Binder saga and turned them away. Their social media is quiet now, private, but a friend sent me screenshots of another guilt-tripping post from my ex-mill. Something about how her son was taken too soon by a bitter wife who turned his children against him. I didn't respond, didn't screenshot it, didn't even react. Because that's the real win, when you stop needing revenge, when you stop explaining your side, when you stop screaming your truth into ears that only want noise, that's when you know you're finally free. People will lie. They'll paint halos over their own heads while throwing blood on your name. They'll weaponize religion. They'll twist your kids into pawns. They'll cry wolf while holding the knife they stabbed you with. But the truth? The truth don't need a megaphone. It just needs time. And when it hits hard, like 6 binders stacked on a church desk, like whispers turning into roars, like daughters who stand tall even after everything they've been through. So yeah, this is my story, not a clean one, not a gentle one, but it's real. And if you're going through something even half this messy, let me say it plain. You are not crazy, you are not cruel, and you sure as hell are not alone. Comment justice in a binder if you felt every second of this story. And hit that sub because these stories, they're real, they're raw, and they remind us that truth always rises even when it's covered in lies.